Well, joining us now are Biba Tanya, a former stripper, who says the industry oppresses women. And live from New York is Christina Hoff Sommers, who believes we should not demonise women for their choices. So good morning to both of you.
Morning.
Biba, you were a stripper from 17 to 23. You worked as Stringfellows in London and Paris. And yet, despite that, you actually don't think this is about feminist empowerment. You think it's exploitation.
The film, I think, is certainly empowering, but the industry itself, no. If you'd have asked 20-year-old topless on a pole Biba if she was a feminist, she would absolutely have agreed, you know, that she was. I was empowered, I was earning my own money, I was calling the shots. In hindsight now, as a 38-year-old mother of three, I can see that it's a very dangerous industry, for one thing. But for another thing, you're turning yourself into a commodity for one massive boys' club. That's not a feminist. You're turning yourself into something that's bought and sold. And I don't see how an industry that sacks you if you have, you know, cellulite or tan lines is really doing anything for feminism or for the empowerment of women.
Christina, in what way do you disagree with Biba? She's been there, she's done it. You know, she did it for, what, 6 years?
Yes.
Stripped in front of men for money, but argues that you are turning yourself into an object. This isn't about female empowerment and the power to use your body to earn a living. This is actually about sexually objectifying yourself.
But shouldn't that be up to the woman to choose? Now, I agree there are dangerous workplaces and places where you would be exploited, and of course women should be protected from sex trafficking and, you know, being abused. But feminism is supposed to be about liberation and about women making choices. I have also spoken to strippers. I have a podcast where my co-host and I, it's called The Femsplainers, and we speak to women from all walks of life. We listen to them and their stories, and we represent a style of feminism that is about, you know, not so much judging and being censorious, but being open to
Christina,
other women's experiences.
I think my issue is it's sort of somewhere in between, in that I find it pretty ridiculous when people like Kim Kardashian, you know, post topless selfies and flipping the bird and so on, and claim that this is feminist empowerment, because anyone can do that. Any woman can do that. I do understand and respect your premise, though, that it actually, ultimately, a woman should be free to do whatever she wants to do with her body.
Well, isn't that
and
the
that
same
should be
thing,
respected.
then? Why is it different when the Kardashians do it?
Because I think you can... I can respect a woman's right to do what she wants to do, but I don't think it should be categorised as feminist empowerment. I don't think it's empowering or particularly liberating to any woman to just take their clothes off. I just think it's... is that the message you want to send to lots of impressionable young women on the way? You know, Biba's experience, when she was young and impressionable, she bought into that ideal, but the reality was very different, it turned out, for her. So, I mean, can it be a bit of both, in a sense, that Hustlers presents
Yes,
this
course.
very glamorous
And
kind of view of it, but it's not that glamorous, and actually, yes, respect a woman's right to make a choice, and she can be a feminist, certainly, but actually, it's not empowering.
But here's what worries me, is that too much of feminism now is sort of carried away with a hyper-puritanical, almost sex-phobic attitude. And people are protesting the swimsuit issue of, you know, Sports magazine. This is ridiculous, is that there are women who do feel that want to show their bodies. They don't feel like they're victims. They're glorying in their beauty and they're enjoying it, and more power to them.
Okay,
I think you have to talk to the individual women. I'm not talking about children or teenagers. I'm talking about people that are adults.
Biba, there's also, I think, there's probably a difference between stripping and, say, the Formula One girls who were carrying the boards around, or the...
There very much is. I did both. I can really speak from experience here. And from what I've gathered with the film, when you're encouraging these guys to drink and get drunk so they can spend the most money, that's the premise of the film. That's true to what happens in these clubs. You're encouraged to get the guys to spend money behind the bar. You're encouraged to get guys to get under the influence, you're also putting yourself in that situation where you're encouraged to drink alongside with them. So before you know it, you're not actually there because you want to be. You're there because you're drunk, you're under the influence. And before you know it, this is a slippery slope for exploitation, for trafficking, for prostitution. And I saw that firsthand. There's nothing liberating about being topless in a room with a guy under the influence who is there because he's got money which thinks gives him the control. You're walking away from it at the end. Yes, you've got money. Yes, you've got cash in hand. You're paying that money back into the club.
Is there a distinction, as I was trying to draw there, between the ring girls of boxing, the Formula One girls, the darts girls, whatever, who are there looking glamorous and they dress up in a sexy, glamorous way, and they love doing what they do, and it's sort of always been considered a bit of fun, but has now become a stick to beat women with and say, no, you're not allowed to do that, we're going to ban them all. Is there a difference between that kind of work and stripping in strip clubs, for example?
Yes, there is. The Formula One girls, the ring girls, brilliant. You're there. They're beautiful girls. Let women do whatever they want. Absolutely. If you want to walk around parading the bikini, that's great. When you're in these lap dancing clubs, you're encouraged to seduce the guys. You're encouraged to get them drunk. That's dangerous. These Formula One girls aren't there encouraging every guy around them to drink alcohol, to get up close and personal. When these lap dances are taking place, there's millimetres, between you and them.
Okay, just bring in Christina. I mean, Christina, really the point I'm making is there a degree here, really, of women making choices, but actually how empowering it is? Biba presented quite a good argument there that, yes, you can be, one of the girls who goes to a sporting event and you're there and you're glamorous and so on, but it's not anywhere near as exploitative, perhaps, as being a stripper in a lap dancing club.
Well, I think you would have to ask the women and take individual cases and ask, but respect women's autonomy and their choices. And there are women who do choose to work in this industry.
The way women look is very different to the way men look. And I think, isn't it part of a continuum? And what strippers are doing are saying, look, we are sexually objectified anyway, in some way, as women, because we're expected to look a certain way. And so why don't we make the most of it? That's the whole... And I think Kim Kardashian's at one end of that continuum. I'm seen in a certain way, and therefore I may as well just take my clothes off and be on Instagram and say, I'm going to own it. And strippers are at the other end.
That was my
continuum.
mindset at 17. I seemed to have, a body that guys would enjoy looking at. Why not go and make some money off of that? The damage that has caused to my mental health and my emotional well-being, now as a 38-year-old woman, that I was able to put myself in that situation where I enjoyed being objectified. I think it's a slow drip process. It's almost grooming, in effect, when you're taking a 17-year-old, 18-year-old girl, putting her in that environment where she's surrounded by these sycophantic men of power who are telling them how attractive they are. It's dangerous. And there's nothing liberating about that. But
on the at the other extreme, Christina, you've described this kind of sex-phobic, hyper-puritanical, we can't go there at all sort of feminism. I mean, I think it's a real challenge for women trying to operate in this environment where we know that we're seen differently. And so you might want to monetize that or be liberated about it or be empowered by it. But actually, you end up in a situation, as Biba describes, where actually just being exploited and vulnerable.
One has to be careful, but what I'm trying to say is you have to be careful as well as not just sort of making these sweeping generalizations that this is harmful, or even that women, why call it objectification if you choose to do it and you are dancing and you're beautiful and men are enjoying it. I think a lot of this comes from a kind of demonization of actually male sexuality. We had generations where we were all disapproving, society was disapproving of homosexual sex, And now it's almost as if things that heterosexuals enjoy doing is now the focus of censoriousness.
A lot of women strippers argue they're not big exploiters, that they're completely in charge. And funny enough, in the movie Hustlers, it's doing great box office numbers, but in the movie, the women are seen as very strong, empowered, and they're conning men, and that's kind of being celebrated. I mean, if it was the other way round and these were men conning women, I doubt it would be celebrated.
I know, I do agree with you, but it is such a dangerous industry.
Yes.
I was working for a very elite club. We were over in Paris. There were wealthy clientele there. They were encouraged to stay after hours. Before I knew it, we were in some Disney-esque Bavarian castle for 3 days with so many drugs there. I thought it had been sponsored by Pablo Escobar. We were there for 3 days. I didn't know how I was going to get home. I didn't know where I was. But we were surrounded by people of such wealth and in such positions of power. And because I was so under the influence of what was there, I lost the capability to think. And these things are going on. You only need to look at headlines like the Epstein scandal to know that these things are going on worldwide. And the lap dancing industry are where these things, you know, where the girls can be procured from. You say that they're there through choice. I can show you, you know, clubs where that is debatable. Especially when there are Eastern European.
It's not an easy answer to this. I just think that the evolution of feminism is a complex thing, and it's not as easy as some people want to frame it, isn't it? That's really the bottom line. But it's interesting that the movie's doing such great numbers. It's the biggest movie in Hollywood right now. It hasn't come here yet. It'd be interesting when people here go and see it. What do they think? You know, does it feel empowering? Is reality a bit different? Biba, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Christina, thank you very much indeed. An interesting debate.